Hi, and welcome to the Sovereign by Design booth here at MWC for AWS. So, today we're going to be talking a little bit about Sovereign by Design. And we usually start with the question of what is digital sovereignty? Because digital sovereignty means quite a few different things to different customers that we speak to on a regular basis. What we try to do is break down digital sovereignty into what we define as the five main pillars. Residency is all about the location of the data and having control over where the data is and control over where the data can go and making sure that customers are in full control of that. Privacy is making sure there is appropriate access control around who can access the data and that the data remains private for its entire use, from storage in transit as well at rest. Secrecy is the long-term secrecy of the data, and we typically do that through encryption. Autonomy is making sure that customers have full control, operational control of their workloads that are running on AWS outside of any external influences. And finally, immunity is making sure that customers are confident around legal enforcement requests that they may get from agencies outside of their jurisdiction. And so these are the main five pillars that we usually get questions about from customers. And what we try and do across all of this is defining and translating these into a set of sovereign controls that we speak to with customers. So number one being around operator access to data. That is a risk that many customers see. And we have our Nitro-based instances, which are kind of our number one technical control around that. So Nitro is our new hypervisor layer that was introduced in 2017 with no operator access, right? And we do that because we have no interactive access to that. And the way that the Nitro hypervisor is created allows for that technical validation for no operator access. And I'll dive into that in just a little bit. So from the technical side, we have Nitro. We have the third-party attestation from NCC Group, which validates the design of Nitro. And then we also have our contractual obligations as well through Section 96 of the AWS service terms, which say that any customer data running on Nitro, there is no operator access to that. And so throughout all of these kind of perceived risks that a lot of telco customers in Europe speak to us about, we have a number of technical controls and contractual controls that can support that in order to reduce that risk. Now, as I mentioned, Nitro is our foundations to our cloud, right? We created Nitro in 2017, and since 2018, all instance types have been powered by the Nitro system through that. As a foundation and as a baseline, there is no operator access mechanism to the Nitro system, right? And this is a really powerful technical control that we have, which allows us to guarantee to customers that no operators can access their customer data. Now, the Nitro system, as I mentioned, is deployed since 2018 across all instance types, across all regions, right? So this is the foundations of our public cloud. It is deployed across all regions so that we make sure that all instance types are supporting this. So this is really the foundation of our Sovereign by Design cloud. So as we can see here, we have our kind of the overview of what the Nitro system is. And because of the redesign of the hypervisor layer and with what we call the Nitro card, we are able to make sure that all operations are controlled, are validated, and are done in a secure, authenticated and authorized manner using a very specific set of APIs. Again, kind of reinforcing the technical controls around no operator access. Now, we also have encryption everywhere, right? We offer an enormous set of encryption mechanisms that customers can take advantage of using our key management service, but also going all the way through into what we call our external key store if specific customers have very specific regulatory requirements to show full control over their keys. This allows customers to adopt and adapt their technical requirements based on the risk that they perceive. Okay, so there is our standard KMS, which is validated and stores keys in hardware security modules, which are validated to FIPS 140-3 requirements. And then again, as I mentioned, you can go all the way through to Cloud HSM if you want to dedicate and have single tenanted HSMs that you can store your keys in. Or if you want to have your keys generated on premise and stored there, you can use external key store as well. But crucially and really importantly, we give customers the ability to encrypt all of their data, whether it is in transit, at rest, in memory, and in process. And now when we speak to customers, we always start with the risk assessment. right? This is the foundations of understanding really what it is they're trying to reduce the risk of, what kind of risks they foresee. We understand their regulatory requirements and regulatory landscape. We understand that risk and we work through them with that risk assessment. And we also have to understand their risk appetite. And based on that, we have a set of requirements that we can then feed in with our AWS technical controls that I've just mentioned, as well as any contractual agreements to work through to understand what their residual risk would look like. And then again, based on their residual risk, we can then define any additional technical controls that can help them get to a comfortable place for them to migrate some of their regulated and highly sensitive workloads into AWS. And so this is all supported by our global infrastructure. Okay, we've got an enormous number of regions. We also have our European sovereign cloud, which has recently been announced to add additional controls, both on technical and contractual elements, to add additional layers of sovereignty for customers that have very specific regulatory requirements about running in European regions. The number of services that we have, all of this is extending our ability to meet where the customers are at. Okay, so all of our encryption services, all of the technical controls that I've mentioned that make up our sovereign by design cloud can be found anywhere from our commercial regions, the European sovereign cloud, our CloudFront local zones, outposts, and even through something like Snowball on an EKS anywhere. And then finally, we really just have our requirements and controls. This is an overview of some of our kind of control landing pages that customers can take advantage of to really understand how they can map their security requirements, their regulatory requirements into technical controls that can then be validated by them as well. And then, as I mentioned, this is an introduction to the European sovereign cloud. As you know, we have our existing public cloud with our commercial cloud with our main regions. But then we have also announced the deployment of the European sovereign cloud into the Germany AWS region, where we will have an independent and partitioned set of billing and identity platforms and access management there as well. Right, so this is a physically separate, independent region, or independent cloud from the main commercial regions. Again, this is all built with the same technical controls that our commercial regions have, but it's there for customers who want some very specific controls and assurances regarding their billing and usage that want to remain in Europe. And that was it. Thank you very much.